Hi, Reggie back speaking about Chapter 5 of Healing America's Narratives, and that's a brief history of African Americans. And we're in the 21st century now in terms of these conversations, and we're speaking about critical race theory. We introduced that phrase at the end of the previous episode. And again, as with all of these episodes, with all of the aspects of the book, these are brief histories and snippets. So these videos are summarizing what's in the book, and the book summarizes vast volumes of American history. So we're not saying this is the final word, but we're tying these brief histories together to take a close look at what needs to be healed in this country, and doing that through owning and recognizing and integrating our collective national shadow. So critical race theory emerged in the 1970s in response to a slowing down, if not a stagnation and reversal of progress that was made with regard to race as a result of the Civil Rights Movement, the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65. And just if you take the language, critical race and theory, to be critical, we're not speaking about, your shoes are ugly. We're not talking about that kind of critical. We're speaking about critical in terms of critical thinking. Oh, I need to take a closer look at this so that I can better understand it. Let me reflect on my own views. That's what I mean by critical thinking. Race, in its early days, it dealt with race. It now deals with gender and with races beyond African Americans. It deals with various racial groups in the United States benefit from critical race theory and its applications. And it's a theory. It's a system of thinking or thoughts that takes a position, researches it, and then looks at the validity of the position based on the research, and then constantly either adds to, subtracts from, tries to get it as true as possible. That's what a theory is, very, very loosely. Prior to 2019, 2020 in the United States, virtually nobody heard about critical race theory in terms of mainstream media and the average person who wasn't literally a critical race theorist. That shifted beginning in Seattle, Washington, when a journalist who wrote a piece on homelessness in Seattle and wrote it in such a way that the homeless activists, those who were trying to help the homeless in Seattle, were offended by what he wrote. Effectively, and this is a gross oversimplification, he attributed more of the homeless problem to the irresponsibility of the homeless people themselves than to any social structures or problems with society at large. And so based on that kind of meeting of the minds in not a positive way, the homeless advocates who disagreed with this journalist found out his name, or they knew his name, found out where he lived, and they posted postcards and placards on telephone poles and trees, and identified where he lived and his family's names, and basically harassed him via both social media and out in the concrete world of posters and trees and things, which is the act of hooligans, right? In other words, it's a kind of the woke cancel thing, which we'll get to in subsequent episodes. But because they disagreed with his writing, they decided, rather than to put forth their disagreement in writing, to harass him and his family. Upset by that, and rightfully upset by that, he began to collect more data about people who were similarly being attacked or felt at the effect of or impact of others who were treating them in a bad way, trying to cancel them. And what he found was that a lot of people had been subject to diversity trainings at their places of work, usually. And that what a lot of these diversity trainings had in common were references to two books, White Fragility and How to Be an Anti-Racist. He took that information, did some more research on it, and wrote another article. And that article was seen by some folks at Fox News. He ended up on the Tucker Carlson show, and based on his appearance in the Tucker Carlson show, President Donald Trump's chief of staff invited him to the White House And within weeks, the White House had a statement around diversity trainings, critical race theory. And this journalist, whose name was Christopher Rufo, dedicated himself to weaponizing critical race theory against the liberal left, so to speak. So we'll say more about the details of that. That's a real brief surface history of how it came into the mainstream media and the news, and how a lot of Americans picked up the phrase without really having any understanding about what the phrase meant, how it began, and what it actually did, and whether the people that they were yelling at school board meetings, at their places of work, and other areas actually knew anything about critical race theory themselves. So it got kind of messy. So thanks for listening. This one is a little bit longer than usual, and we'll pick up on it and bring it to a close in the next episode. Again, if you want some detail on this, please read the book, Healing America's Narratives. All right, see you the next time.